Have you ever met someone who wanted you badly in the beginning, touched you like they could not get enough, looked at you like you were the answer, and then slowly turned into a stranger the deeper the relationship became? At first it feels electric, the chemistry is wild, the late-night talks flow, the sex feels easy, intense, almost unreal. You think, this is it, this is rare, this is finally the connection I have been waiting for, but then something changes. The texts lose warmth, the touch gets lighter, the passion that once felt natural starts to feel forced, delayed, or missing. And the closer you try to get, the further they seem to drift. If you have lived this, stay with me, because this pattern is not random and it is not all in your head. What you are seeing is one of the most painful dynamics in love, someone who wants connection but begins to shut down when that connection becomes real. And one of the first places this shows up is in sex and intimacy, not because attraction always dies, but because closeness starts to feel dangerous. That is the part most people miss. This is where confusion begins. This is where self-blame begins. This is where many loving people start asking the wrong question. They ask, what is wrong with me? But the better question is, what is fear doing inside the other person when love stops feeling exciting and starts feeling real? And once you understand that, everything starts to look different. Let's make one thing clear right away. A partner with avoidant patterns is not always cold by choice, heartless by nature, or trying to punish you on purpose. A lot of this behavior comes from deep emotional wiring that usually began long before you ever entered their life. Many of them grew up in spaces where feelings were ignored, mocked, shut down, or treated like a burden. They learned early that needing comfort was risky, that opening up could lead to shame, and that depending on someone could end in hurt. So they adapted. They became strong on the outside, self-contained, independent, and emotionally guarded. They taught themselves to survive without asking for much. And to be fair, that survival style often works for a while. It helps them look calm, capable, and in control. But relationships do not stay on the surface forever. In the early stage, they often feel fine. Sometimes they feel amazing. The connection is fresh. There is space. There is play. There is mystery. Nobody is asking for too much yet. Nobody is close enough to touch the hidden fear. But the deeper the bond gets, the more the old alarm system starts to wake up. The relationship asks for more truth, more softness, more emotional presence, more being seen. And that is when the pressure starts building inside them. This next part matters. The same person who looked fearless while chasing love can become deeply unsettled once love begins to settle in. The danger is not always the relationship. The danger in their nervous system is what closeness means. One of the earliest things to change is often sex, and this confuses people because the attraction may still be there, the body may still respond, they may still find you beautiful, desirable, even deeply wanted. But desire is not only physical. For many people, sex becomes more intimate as love deepens. It stops being just chemistry and starts becoming exposure. It becomes a place where bodies meet, yes, but also where emotions open, where tenderness enters, where trust becomes visible. And for someone who links vulnerability with danger, that shift can feel overwhelming. What once felt exciting now feels too close. What once felt playful now feels loaded. What once felt free now feels like a doorway into emotional dependency. So they begin to pull back, not always because they consciously decide to, but because part of them is trying to reduce the intensity. If this has ever happened to you, listen carefully. They are not always running from sex itself. Many times they are running from what sex now represents. It represents attachment. It represents being known. It represents surrendering control. And control matters a lot to someone who survives by staying guarded. The more real the bond becomes, the more their inner system starts whispering, slow down, step back, protect yourself. So touch becomes less spontaneous, passion becomes less natural, the energy changes, and the partner on the other side feels it immediately, even when no one says a word. That silent shift can be brutal because it makes you feel unwanted when the truth is often far more complicated. This is why the hot and cold cycle feels so intense. In the beginning, they can be all in, they pursue, they flirt, they say the right things, they initiate, they make you feel chosen. Sometimes they are even more passionate than anyone you have ever known. It is strong, magnetic, unforgettable. But then, just when your heart starts trusting it, the temperature drops. Not always in one dramatic move. Sometimes it happens in tiny moments. They stop reaching for your hand. They stop kissing you with the same hunger. They say they are tired. They say work is stressful. They become distracted, distant, harder to read. Compliments get fewer. Physical affection fades. Sex starts to feel rushed, mechanical, postponed, or gone. And if you bring it up, you may get confusion, defensiveness, or a vague answer that solves nothing. This is where many people panic. They think they need to be more attractive, more patient, more understanding, less emotional, less needy, somehow easier to love. But wait, because this is the trap. The hot and cold pattern often has less to do with your value and more to do with their fear being activated by emotional closeness. The more attached they sense you becoming, the more pressure they may feel inside. That pressure can make them retreat, not because you did something terrible, but because intimacy is starting to ask for a part of them they do not know how to give without feeling exposed. And when fear leads, distance follows. Inside that distance, there is often a conflict most people never see. Many avoidant partners do want love. They want closeness. They want to feel chosen, admired, desired, and emotionally important. They may dream about a deep bond just like anyone else. But when that bond becomes real in daily life, it can flood them. Their nervous system reads connection as pressure. Their body reads intimacy as loss of control. Their mind starts looking for escape routes. This is where deactivation begins. They may focus on your flaws more than your love. They may suddenly think the relationship is moving too fast. They may tell themselves that the spark is gone, that something feels off, that maybe you are too intense, too emotional, too available, too much. These thoughts feel convincing to them in the moment, but often they are protective stories the mind creates to lower emotional intensity. In other words, the deeper the feeling, the stronger the urge to shut it down. And this can show up sexually too. They may tell themselves the chemistry changed when what really changed was the emotional meaning behind it. They may say they just are not in the mood anymore, when under the surface they feel crowded, exposed, or unsafe in ways they cannot explain. Stay with me here, because this point changes everything. Their withdrawal is often not proof that your connection was fake. Sometimes it is proof that the connection became real enough to scare them. That does not make the pain smaller, but it does make the pattern easier to understand. There is another truth that people rarely say out loud. For some avoidant partners, sex feels easier when there is less emotional closeness. In casual situations, they can be bold, open, playful, even adventurous, because the heart is not fully involved. The body can show up without the deeper risk of emotional dependence. There is less expectation, less responsibility, less chance of being truly seen. But inside a committed relationship, sex changes shape. It is no longer just desire. It begins to carry meaning. It starts speaking the language of love, trust, comfort, belonging, and emotional surrender. And that is where fear can enter. What sounds safe to most people can feel unsafe to them. Emotional safety can feel like a trap if they never learned that love and freedom can exist together. So when sex becomes tied to tenderness and deeper bonding, panic can quietly take over. They may not say, "I'm scared of how close this feels." Instead, they go silent, they delay, they detach, they create space, they act less interested. They keep one foot near the exit without always realizing it, and this leaves the other partner deeply confused because the same person who once brought heat now avoids closeness like it is too heavy to carry. If this dynamic has broken your confidence, hear this clearly. It is painful, yes. It is personal in impact, yes. But it is not always personal in cause. Sometimes you are standing in front of someone who can desire connection from a distance, but begins to shut down when that connection asks them to stay fully present inside it. As the relationship grows, another fear often appears, the fear of losing the self. This matters more than most people understand. For someone with avoidant patterns, intimacy can become linked with obligation. Love starts to feel like demand. Closeness starts to feel like responsibility they cannot escape. Emotional expectations rise naturally in any real relationship, but to them, those expectations may feel like pressure on their freedom. Somewhere inside, a thought begins forming. If I give more, I will disappear. If I keep opening up, I will get swallowed. If I keep showing up emotionally, I will lose control of my own space, needs, and identity. So instead of speaking that fear directly, they often act it out through distance. They become less affectionate, less available, less responsive, less sexual. They seem present physically, but absent emotionally. And the partner beside them starts living in confusion, trying to decode every silence, every delayed touch, every sudden shift in energy. This is where people start overworking for love. They become more giving, more patient, more forgiving, more willing to shrink themselves just to bring back the warmth that used to feel so natural. But what happens next is important. The more one person chases, the more the avoidant may feel crowded, and the more crowded they feel, the further they pull away. That creates a painful loop. One person reaches for reassurance, the other reaches for distance. One wants closeness to feel safe, the other wants space to feel safe, and without awareness, that cycle can go on for months or years. So, if you are on the receiving end of this, let's slow down and say something that needs to be said with force. This does not automatically mean you are unattractive, uninteresting, needy, or hard to love. It does not mean you ruined the chemistry. It does not mean your body, your warmth, or your desire caused the distance. In fact, your openness may be exactly what triggered fear in someone who has never learned how to receive steady love without bracing for loss, pressure, or pain. That is why they can look drawn to you and scared of you at the same time. Part of them wants the closeness, another part wants to run from it. Part of them likes being loved. Another part does not trust what being loved will require. And if you do not understand that split, you may spend too long blaming yourself for a battle that started long before you arrived. But this is not a message telling you to excuse hurt forever. It is a message telling you to see clearly. Compassion does not mean self-abandonment. Understanding someone's fear does not mean you must stay inside a dynamic that keeps starving your heart. You can care deeply and still tell the truth. You can understand their wounds and still admit that your needs matter too. Keep watching this pattern closely, because clarity is what protects you. Not fantasy, not hope alone, not chemistry, clarity. And once you have that, you stop making their withdrawal a mirror of your worth. So, what can you actually do when a partner starts losing interest in sex and intimacy as the relationship deepens? First, stop turning their withdrawal into a verdict on your value. That is hard. It hurts. It may go against every instinct you have, but it is necessary. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" start asking, "What happens in this relationship whenever closeness increases?" Notice the pattern. Does distance show up after emotional talks, after deeper commitment, after warmth, vulnerability, or more consistency? If yes, then you may be looking at fear of intimacy, not simple lack of attraction. Second, create emotional safety without chasing. That means no begging for affection, no trying to earn love through sex, no performing calm while dying inside, no shrinking your needs just to keep them from leaving. Speak clearly, stay grounded, say what you feel without trying to rescue, diagnose, or fix them. Their healing is not your job. Your job is to stay honest about what this dynamic is doing to you. And here is a retention point worth remembering. Love does not become healthier just because you understand the psychology behind the pain. Insight matters, but behavior matters more. If they keep withdrawing, deflecting, shutting down, or making intimacy feel like a burden, then the pattern is still the pattern, no matter how intelligent the explanation sounds. You are allowed to need warmth. You are allowed to want reciprocity. You are allowed to say, "This is not enough for me," even if the other person has a painful history. It also helps to understand that you may be speaking different emotional languages. For one person, closeness feels like air. For the other, it feels like heat. One relaxes through connection. The other becomes tense through it. One wants to talk, process, reach, and repair. The other wants to step back, shut down, and regain distance. Neither experience feels fake to the person living it, but they create a brutal mismatch when there is little self-awareness. This is why pursuit and retreat can feel endless. The more one partner asks for reassurance, the more the other may hear pressure. The more the other withdraws, the more the first feels panic. And when sex is part of that cycle, it can become loaded with fear, resentment, confusion, and silent grief. It stops being a place of mutual enjoyment and starts becoming a measurement of love, safety, rejection, or power. That is dangerous for both people. Real intimacy cannot grow well where emotional maturity stays shallow. Love alone does not solve it. Attraction alone does not solve it. Time alone does not solve it. Both people have to learn what is happening and take responsibility for how they respond to it. If not, the relationship becomes a loop where each person keeps proving the other person's fear. One fears abandonment, the other fears engulfment. One pushes harder, the other disappears faster, and everybody ends up exhausted. If this sounds familiar, do not ignore it just because there are still good moments. A few good moments cannot carry a relationship that keeps collapsing under real closeness. Now, let's be fair and honest. Not every avoidant partner stays disconnected forever. Change is possible. Real growth is possible. Sexual and emotional intimacy can return and deepen when a person becomes aware of their pattern and decides to work on it seriously. That work may involve therapy, it may involve honest self-reflection, it may involve learning how the body reacts to closeness, how fear shows up, how old wounds get activated, and how to stay present instead of shutting down. It may involve learning to communicate fear before it turns into distance. It may involve saying, "I feel overwhelmed, I need a pause, but I do not want to disconnect from you." That kind of honesty changes everything. But here is the part many people do not want to hear. You cannot force that transformation by loving them harder. You cannot be wise enough, sexy enough, patient enough, soft enough, or loyal enough to heal a person who keeps choosing emotional escape over emotional growth. You can invite them into a healthier way. You can model steadiness. You can offer truth and space, but you cannot do their inner work for them. And if you try, you will lose pieces of yourself one quiet compromise at a time. So pay attention to willingness. That is the key. Not just chemistry, not just potential, not just what they say when they fear losing you. Willingness. Are they curious about their pattern? Do they take responsibility? Do they try to repair after withdrawing? Do they care how their distance affects you? Those answers matter more than beautiful words during temporary closeness. There is also a huge difference between someone who is struggling and someone who is simply unavailable. A struggling person may pull away, but they can admit it. They can say, "I know I shut down. I know this hurts you. I want to understand it. I do not have this mastered, but I want to work on it." That person may still be difficult at times, but there is honesty there. There is movement. There is accountability. An unavailable person does something else. They minimize your needs. They act like your pain is the problem. They twist the story until you feel guilty for asking for basic warmth. They keep taking the benefits of closeness while avoiding the responsibility of showing up consistently. They may call you needy for wanting normal intimacy. They may go cold and then act confused when you notice. They may return just enough to keep hope alive, then disappear again when the relationship starts feeling real. That is not just fear, that is harm, and knowing the difference can save you years, because one person is trying, however imperfectly, to move toward connection. The other is using distance as a permanent hiding place. If you stay too long with the second type, you may start abandoning yourself while telling yourself you are being understanding. That is why clarity is mercy. It hurts to see the truth, but it hurts more to keep begging for what someone has no real intention of building with you. And when intimacy keeps vanishing every time the bond deepens, the pattern itself becomes the message. So here is the truth I want to leave ringing in your mind long after this ends. When a partner loses interest in sex and intimacy as the relationship gets deeper, it is not always a statement about your desirability. Very often, it is a reflection of their fear. Fear that love will consume them. Fear that emotional closeness will erase their independence. Fear that being fully seen will lead to pain, pressure, disappointment, or loss of self. And unless that fear is faced directly, no amount of passion, loyalty, beauty, or devotion from you will ever make the relationship feel fully safe to them. You are not here to become a detective just to be loved. You are not here to solve a maze just to be touched, chosen, or emotionally met. You are not here to trade your needs for tiny moments of warmth that disappear the second things get real. Love should feel mutual. It should feel open. It should feel alive, not like a locked door you keep knocking on with bruised hands. Yes, have compassion. Yes, understand the pattern. Yes, see the wound if it is there. But do not forget yourself while doing that. Your need for closeness matters. Your need for intimacy matters. Your need for consistency matters. And if someone keeps hiding the moment love asks them to be real, then maybe the problem is not that you want too much. Maybe the deeper truth is that you have been asking the wrong person for the right kind of love. If this spoke to something you have lived, stay with that feeling, because seeing the pattern clearly may be the first step to finally setting your heart free.